Those of you who don't know, Story is a concept store, and we change our theme every 4 to 8 weeks. And with each new theme, we have all new merchandise and a completely new store design. So right now, we are in her story, and we're super psyched to have Jen here. And I'll let Megan talk a little bit.
So Jen joined us about a year and a half ago during our love story, where she talked about her book, All My Friends Are Engaged. And naturally, what happens after you're in a book about all your friends are engaged, you become a professional bridesmaid. So today, we're having her to kind of share how that happened and what the journey has been like and all the adventures she's had helping women get married and walk down the aisle. So we're really excited. And I'm just going to kick things off with one quick question for you. So obviously weddings are about more than just dresses, but like kind of about dresses. So I'd love it if you could just share just a great dress story that you've had, either during your time as a professional bridesmaid or in the past, just a dress that's really meant something to you. Sure. And then you can go from there and share the rest of your story.
Okay, so to answer your question, the best dress I ever wore was for a bride who said, you can wear whatever you want, which is, you never hear that from brides. So when you hear that, you get super excited, and she told us we can have any dress we wanted as long as it had like a little bit of embroidery on it and a little like flair to it. So I actually went to my mom's closet and I found a dress that my mom wore to an event about 10 years ago. And I got to wear my mom's dress as a bridesmaid dress, and that was really cool to be able to wear something I felt comfortable in and also wear something that had a cool story to it. So I'm just going to move this chair out of the way. All right, so I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. It's actually the hottest day we've had so far in New York City, so thank you for sweating your way all the way from the subway to 10th Avenue to be here. I'm Jen Glantz, and for the past 5 years of my life, I've publicly displayed the intimate details of everything about myself on the internet. So if you were to Google my name, like a lot of my first dates do, and then never speak to me again, you would find out things like my bra size. You would find out that I tried out for The Bachelor. You would also find out that my mom went on my JDate account and messaged guys for me and then made me go out with them. You'll also find out that all of my friends are engaged, or at least I thought they all were. I was asked to be a bridesmaid so many times over the past couple of years that I'd be on the dance floor dancing, the DJ would say, okay, it's time to toss the bouquet and see which lucky single girl catches it. And I would notice that I was the only single girl left on the dance floor. And that was awkward because you're like, at that point, they should just end the whole bouquet toss and they should just bring it nicely over to my table. So that's when I knew, okay, all my friends are engaged. But I was wrong, because last year, even more of my friends got married, and in June last year, 2 of my friends on the same day asked me to be a bridesmaid. And that's when I was nicknamed by my roommate the professional bridesmaid. As a bridesmaid, I made every single mistake you could possibly make. To be honest with you, when I was a bridesmaid the first, the second, and the third time, I hated it. I had no idea what I was doing. For example, I didn't get my bridesmaid dress until the month before the wedding. So I went to like David's Bridal and I was like, I'm Jen Glantz, I need this purple chiffon dress by 3 weeks from now. And they're like, Jen, you're crazy, it takes 6 to 8 weeks. So that was mistake number 1. And I went to the fabric store and I was cutting up purple chiffon myself, trying to make a dress that would be ready in 3 weeks for the wedding. Mistake number 2 was I would bring lingerie to the bridal shower, which you might not think is awkward or weird, but when the bride is like lifting up a silky red 36 double D bra in front of her mom, his mom, and their grandmas, my face turned like the color of the bra, and it was so embarrassing. I also used to invite guys I was seeing to show up at the wedding. I didn't have a +1, but I'd be like, hey, I met you on Tinder, we went on a couple dates, like, come show up and, dance with me. I didn't realize you couldn't do that. So I made every single mistake as a bridesmaid. And it was, a learning experience, but after a while, I really started to enjoy it. I started to get the hang of it, and I started to have all of these tips that I wanted to share with the world. So Bridesmaid for Hire, I like to say, was a planned accident. My life was changing. Saturdays were no longer days where I would go on dates with guys from Tinder, like Lizard. I nicknamed this guy Lucas the Lizard Tongue because one time he went to kiss me and he like slobbered all over my earlobe. I went on a date with a guy named Ross, who I nicknamed Ross the Rabbi in Training because he met me for lunch one day after circumcising a baby that was next door to him. So I was going on all these failed Tinder dates on Saturday night, but that was no longer my life, and I started to be a bridesmaid for my friends. So my typical Saturday night was going to weddings and doing this, and I started to like it. So, flash forward, June 27th last year, I came home to an empty apartment, and it was 9 p.m. I opened up my computer screen, and I went on a website that people typically go to when they're looking for missed love or used couches, even new jobs. But I was on there for a different reason. I had this idea in my head, and it was one of those ideas that you always want to try to find the perfect time to tell somebody about, but you chicken out because you're scared they're going to call you weird, or they're going to feel your head to see if you have a fever, or they're just going to call you crazy again. So I didn't tell anybody about this idea I had. But I noticed that I would be waking up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would be like shaking, and my heart would be racing, and this idea would be like, do something about me, Jen. Like, you know, it had like a personality and a voice, and it was like, are you ever gonna like do this, or is it just gonna be in your head? So on June 27th, I did something about it, and I went on Craigslist. I posted an ad. I shut my computer screen, and I went to sleep. 48 hours later, I got a G-chat from a friend, and the friend said, look at this article I read on BuzzFeed. It's about a girl who is a professional bridesmaid and is offering her services to strangers on Craigslist. And I said to myself in my head, I was like, oh no, that's me, but nobody knows. So I called my brother, and I was like, hey brother, I did something. And I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I did something on a website you told me never to go on, and you might see it in the news, and I just want to tell you I'm sorry. And then after that, I checked my email. I actually made a fake email for the Craigslist ad, and it was, doigetaa+1@gmail.com. Because I wanted to be totally anonymous. I didn't want anyone to know it was my ad. And I checked my email inbox, and I actually had about 300 to 400 emails from strangers all around the world. And these strangers were women who were brides, and they were like, I want to know more. I want to know what you're offering. I want to know what I can, how I can hire you. It was from women all around the world who wanted to know how they can work for me. They loved the concept of being there to help other women, and they wanted to join along. And of course, okay, it's Craigslist, so of course there was like tons of creepy guys who were like, hey babe, like, you seem sexy. I'm like, but A, you don't know who I am, and B, you haven't seen a picture, so you think I'm sexy because I'm posting about like being a bridesmaid. So it became like half dating, half business, but it was really interesting to me that I got all of these responses. I majored in English creative writing. I had never started a business before in my life. The only business I ever had was when I was 7, and I sold comic books on the street corner with my friend Jamie. And we would make like $7 on a Saturday and think we were like entrepreneurs and super successful. That was the only business experience I had, but now in front of me was just this massive situation, you can call it. The media was like, come speak to us about what you're doing, and I was like, I don't know what I did. All I know is I posted this ad because I had this idea, and I received these responses. So it was a lot of figuring it out on the spot. And my brother opened up the website. He went on WordPress.com, and he bought the domain name Bridesmaid for Hire. So I was like, okay. My brother chose the name Bridesmaid for Hire. I opened up a Word document, and I started typing down, okay, here's what I think I want this business to be about. There is no such thing as a professional bridesmaid that is anywhere in the world, so I didn't know what to compare it to. But I wrote in bold letters and caps, like, Bridesmaid for Hire, professional bridesmaid, helps women feel confident on their wedding day. And that's what I knew I wanted it to be. And that's all we had. I mean, on July 3rd, when Bridesmaid for Hire was live on the internet, that's all we had. It was just that and a working website and, packages. But we didn't even have prices, to be honest with you. I don't know a thing about finances or money or how to price things or the market. I majored in creative writing, so if you wanted to poem about those things, like, sure, could do that. So, by July 3rd, we had Bridesmaid for Hire. By July 6th, I was working with my first bride officially. Her name was Ashley. She was from Minnesota, and she emailed me saying that she had just fired her maid of honor. I know. That seems shocking, but it happens. Weddings are so stressful, and when you're a bridesmaid and you're dealing with a bride, it's like both of you, your personalities are heightened, emotions are flying, and unfortunately a lot of people lose friendships this way. So I have been in so many weddings before that I noticed a lot of times brides and bridesmaids didn't speak after the wedding, let alone while the wedding was going on. So I thought it was pretty normal. And I said, hey Ashley, I'm Jen Glantz. I don't know what I'm doing, but let's talk on the phone. So Ashley answered my phone call, which was step one of being a salesperson. They got to answer the phone call. And then it was me trying to sell Ashley and why she should hire me as her bridesmaid. I have no sales background, so I probably said everything you could say wrong in sales, which is like, please, Ashley, I promise I'll do a really good job, and I'll give you a discount. How's free? Does that sound like a good number? And eventually, Ashley called me back, and she's like, yeah, this is great. I'd love to have you as my bridesmaid for hire. My wedding is on, September, and I'd love for you to be there in person. So, booked my first client and booked a plane ticket to Minnesota for her wedding. I was actually lucky enough to meet Ashley in New York City. She'd never been here before, and a TV show wanted to see what this was all about. So I said, I'll go on a TV show if you fly my girl Ashley out here so she can see New York City. So Ashley came here, and we actually met in front of the Starbucks on 37th and 7th for the first time. And I'll never forget waiting for her, and I was shaking because this was just an idea that was in my head on a Friday night that was making my heart race, and now it's coming to life. And I'm meeting this girl Ashley who's make it or break it for me, because either it works out with Ashley and this is a business, or flops completely and I have to totally revamp what I'm doing. And also, Ashley's a person. What if Ashley and I don't get along? What if Ashley thinks I'm obnoxious or not funny or weird or all the things that I often think I am, myself? So I was really nervous to meet Ashley, and I remember just standing there thinking to myself, what am I doing? Am I gonna get through this? Is she gonna run the opposite direction? And we hugged, and I was really excited to meet her in person, and that was the start of everything. And from Ashley, I did another wedding the month after for two guys named Rod and Buck. They're from Australia, and they wanted to get married in Times Square. They have never been to New York before. And they wanted a personal stylist, so I helped them go to Macy's, and they actually make Spanx for guys, which I just learned. So they got themselves Spanx for guys, and I did their wedding for them in Times Square, and I was the only bridesmaid there, so I was literally pushing away tourists. So I was you can't cross the street, they're getting married. It was raining on 42nd Street, and it was crazy. After Rod and Buck, I did a couple more, and I actually just did one in April for a bride named Bryn, who is here tonight. Bryn is in the back. Even before I knew Bryn was coming, I was going to say this about her. And I actually wrote about it on my blog, that Bryn was the calmest bride I've ever worked with in my life. People always ask me, oh, you must work with so many bridezillas, and I'm you definitely work with lots of personalities, but Bryn was super calm, and if you get to talk to Bryn tonight, you'll notice that her personality is the coolest. She's the girl you want to be best friends with in summer camp, but you're oh, she's way cooler than me. She likes all these hipster things, and she likes Forever 21. Bryn actually invited Taylor Swift to her wedding, and she didn't just say I'm going to invite her. No, she mailed her an invitation and a 5-page letter, and she gave her a seating arrangement. She gave her a seat at a table. She's table number 7, seat 3 is Taylor Swift. So Bryn really thought Taylor Swift was going to be there. So it was really cool working with Bryn and being with her, because she's really awesome and was a very different personality than I was ever used to working with, which is such a cool part of the business, is working with strangers and working with personalities that are very different from each other and even yourself. People always want to know, this must be so weird. How can you be a bridesmaid for a stranger? But I always like to say that everybody you meet is a stranger. If you came here with a friend tonight, they were once a stranger to you. If you come meet me after this, and I really hope you do, we would have been strangers before you came and shook my hand hello. Like, even the guy you're going to marry, if you're not married, will once be a stranger to you. So the strange thing about strangers is it's not that strange to meet them and be their bridesmaid, or marry them if you're meeting a guy for the first time. So that's a question people always say, like, it must be so strange, but it's not. It's actually kind of normal to meet strangers and to interact with them. The other big thing I want to tell you is I'm really actually excited to talk about the business tonight, because I've never really spoken about that, and I never thought, it's almost been a year, I never thought I'd be the person up here like giving business advice. I used to be the one, I'm not joking, I would go to like MBA, the intro to MBA classes at like NYU or Columbia and sit in the back and like pretend I was actually enrolled there, because business fascinated me, but I was like on this like writer's track with my life. And it's crazy because you work so hard in school and in life to do one thing, but why? Why are you only supposed to do one thing with your life? Like, why can't you do 17 things, or even 2? So I'm like actually really honored to be here to tell you about business. And the one main thing I want to tell you about starting a business is that you have to make a ton of mistakes. If you want to start a business and you're like, I want everything to be perfect, it's not going to be, and you're going to find yourself, like I found myself, hysterically crying many nights in your room by yourself. And one of those nights I was hysterically crying in my room by myself, thinking like, what did I do? How do I get out of this? I don't know what I'm doing. I actually Googled free business tutors in New York City, because I was like, I'm sick of trying to be my own lawyer and my own financial accountant and my own business planner. Like, I need help. So I Googled free business tutors, and New York City was so kind to set me up with a guy who's 82 years old, who the first time I met him, I was like, hi, I'm Jen Glantz. I started a business called Bridesmaid for Hire, and he's like, get out. And I was like, no, let me explain. And he's like, get out. He kicked me out 5 times. On the 5th time he kicked me out, it was actually for a valid reason. He said, you need to leave right now unless you can rattle off a list of failures that happened to you in the last week. And I was like, failures? I'm trying to be perfect. Why would I want to fail? Like, even if I did fail, Ray, my 82-year-old tutor, like, I wouldn't tell you. We live in a generation these days where if we do something wrong, we don't broadcast it. You don't see Instagram pictures of me waking up with no makeup on, with my hair in a bun. No. You don't see pictures of me on Instagram when I painted my nails like a really ugly shade of green. No. You see pictures on Instagram when I'm freshly showered and I just got my nails done. So like, we don't admit mistakes. We don't admit failures. But he was like, but why? If you haven't failed, if you can't tell me the ways you failed, then you're getting out of bed in the morning for the wrong reasons. And I was like, right, like no one's ever told me this before. So he's like, good, get out. And you can come back next week, but I want you to give me a list of failures. So I'd come back every week and he'd be like, where's your list? And I'd be like, right, like, come on, you don't really want to see my failures. And he's like, where, and I was like, would you count my dating life as a failure? He's like, tell me more about that. So I was like, okay, Ray, like I went on a date and the guy never texted me and I never called him. He's like, perfect, that's a failure. So he's been mentoring me in my personal life as well. But this whole concept of failure was fascinating to me, especially when you're starting a business. So my biggest thing is when you start a business, plan to make every mistake. Like, actually try to make mistakes. No one's ever going to tell you this, by the way. Like, you go to like the MBA programs at NYU and they're like, read the textbooks and get those internships and study. But the truth is, like, you need to prepare yourself to make mistakes. Like, you need to prepare yourself for everything to go wrong, because it's going to. And if you look at it as like, okay, I know I'm gonna fail at 5 out of 10 things, like, that's not a reason not to do those things. You need to set yourself up to fail sometimes. It's the same thing with dating. I love talking about dating because I'm so bad at it. So I love to tell people what I wish I did myself. And one of those things is I wish I failed more, and I wish I took more risks in dating. I go on dates and I'm like, I hope he calls me, I hope he texts me. Why don't I just call and text him? And the reason why I don't call and text him is sometimes the reason why I don't email brides for business to do sales is because I'm scared they're going to say no. I'm scared they're going to reject me. But if I'm having this whole mindset of failure, why not? And the more times you fail, the funny part is the more times you fail, the less you care. You know, so the more times you're like, okay, I'm gonna call up 5 brides today and try to sell them on my ultimate bridesmaid package. And if by the first 2 times they're like, no way, Jen, goodbye, you kind of feel like you're like, okay, what was so bad about that? She kind of laughed in my face and hung up the phone. Now I'm ready to fail 3 more times. So you really prepare yourself for it, and it doesn't feel as bad times 3 through 5. The other piece of advice I would give you if you want to start a business is don't tell anybody about it beforehand. I talk to people all the time and they have these wonderful ideas, but if you tell people, here's 2 things that are going to happen. 1, they're going to give you their opinion, and your whole idea is now going to become chopped up and sliced up like you're at one of those Japanese meals where they have the grill and they're chopping up the rice and the vegetables and frying everything. Your idea is going to get sliced apart and so ugly because now you have other people's opinions coming in, and it's no longer this beautiful, delicate thing that you started. The second thing is, the more people you tell about it, the less you're actually going to do it. Every time in my life I've told someone I was going to do something, I didn't do it. Or at least I didn't do it immediately because I kept being so hesitant about it. Now, I need one more opinion before I start. So with Bridesmaid for Hire, I had that idea in my head for a couple weeks, and I didn't tell anybody. After I posted the ad, I did tell one friend. We were getting ice cream, and I was like, oh, I did something this weekend. She's like, cool, what'd you do? I was like, I went on Craigslist, and I offered myself as a bridesmaid, and I think she just totally zoned me out because she said nothing. But you don't want to tell people, because if I tell people, I'm going to go home tonight and post an ad on Craigslist offering myself as a bridesmaid, they would be like, Jen, the mental hospital's that way, and you need to go there tonight, you know? So I didn't tell anybody. The second main piece of advice I would say is after you start your business, then you should tell everybody. And then you should ask for advice, which is so hard to do. I would say up until maybe last month, I tried to do everything myself. So I would try to read through contracts, like really intense contracts, and I would try to circle things that I thought were not okay. I was trying to be a lawyer. And I would go to Bank of America and be like, I want to become a type C corporation, and I want this, this, and this, but I didn't know what I was doing. Or, I would try to make these business plans, but I didn't know. And I realized you need to ask for help. Because there's people out there that know way more than you do, and they are going to help you. They want to help you, you just have to ask. And if you think that you can go online and read about these things, you can. But you're going to drive yourself crazy. It's like when you go on WebMD and you're like, I have a cough, and WebMD is like, well, you actually have 17 other things, and then you're sidetracked, and by the end of the hour, you think you have Ebola because you had typed in cough. It's the same thing when you're researching things and you want to learn information. You get so overwhelmed, you're sidetracked, you're all over the place. Ask for the help. And the last part, of course, is to make the mistakes. I cannot enforce that enough. If you wake up in the morning and you can still get out of bed with all the mistakes you've done, I will consider you a successful person. It's the greatest thing you can do for yourself is be super risky. So if you're sitting here tonight, and I'm sure a lot of you came tonight just because you have this crazy idea in your head, or you have a business idea in your head, or no one's ever told you the truth about starting a business, my advice to you is leave here, not now, but eventually, leave here, go home, open your computer, and do 3 things to make that business happen. 3 things you can do: buy the domain name. I'm not gonna, this is gonna make me sound crazy, maybe I shouldn't tell you. I bought 55 domain names last year because I didn't know what to call this Craigslist ad thing. So I bought everything from Bridesmaids for Hire to, Rent a Bridesmaid to GlentzYourBridesmaid.com, .net, .co, everything. Buy the domain name. Go on WordPress.com. It's the simplest way to make a website. There's Squarespace, that costs money. WordPress is free. Anybody can learn WordPress. It's super simple. It's very easy to use. You can update your own website, which you desperately want to do, and it's free. Never pay anyone for anything that you can do yourself, and you can definitely make your own website. The next thing is, if you're wondering, okay, how do I get my name out there? Once again, never pay someone for something you can do yourself. Social media is free advertising. I spent $0 on advertising. I this is also embarrassing to admit, like I'm so cheap with money. Like if I make $5, I'm like, give me that, and like I put it in like a box, and I'm like, no one's touching it unless I want like pizza or like something, you know, not important. But you don't need to buy Google ads or Facebook ads, and if you do, you're gonna have to spend so much money on it. Use social media. How do you get social media followers? Well, you know when you're watching TV from the hours of 6 to 10 p.m. at night, that's when you have your phone on you probably, like reading about Kesha or the Kardashians, you know, you're like reading stuff on your phone. That's when you're building your social media following. That's when you're going on Instagram and finding really awesome people and following them. That's when you're going on Twitter and scheduling Twitter posts to go out throughout the week. I always say like 6 to 9 when I'm watching TV, that's also social media time, and that's free advertising. I've gotten a ton of opportunities and a ton of clients just by social media. Another thing you can go home and do tonight if you want to start a business is look up competitors. I had no idea if anyone else was doing a business like being a professional bridesmaid. It turns out nobody else was, but you should look it up. And so let's say you find like 3 people who are doing your idea. Let's say you want to sell shower curtains that can also be used as tablecloths. That's your business idea. Shower curtains that can be used as tablecloths. So you want to find out if anyone else is doing it. Actually, you want to hope that someone else is doing it because they've already tested the market for you. And you can look at their pricing, look at their models. Competition is also really great. So if someone else is doing your idea, don't be like, okay, X out of that, I need to be original. Do it yourself. And maybe you can do it better, or you can do it differently, or you can study them and research what they're doing wrong, and you can do it right. And what's really cool about that as well is that you can make it your own thing. You can take what somebody else already did and make it you and add you onto it and make it totally unique and totally cool. When I started Bridesmaid for Hire, there was, like I said, there was nobody else doing anything like that. So people will ask me again, well, how did you figure out how much to charge? I don't know. I just used to call brides and be like, okay, like how much do you want? I started off, this is how I started off. Free. I'll do it for free. And then I was like, wait, you can't do it for free. So then I'd be like, how much do you want to pay? Never ask someone how much they want to pay because their answer is going to be like nothing, you know? Then I would look up similar professions. So people always think wedding planners is very similar to this kind of job. So I researched how much wedding planners charge. I researched how much day of coordinators charge. I even researched how much photographers charge. I try to get hourly rates from everybody. And I would cut those up and I would divide those up and see how much I wanted to charge. So it's all about research, all about looking up different types of businesses and trying to complement your own off of theirs, which I think is, you know, super important. So, you know, I think I've talked for a while, and I'm going to open it up for questions, and I really want to hear, you know, why you guys came out tonight and what I can tell you. I'm super honest. I told you that I've been writing about my life on the internet for 5 years. I pride myself on telling you the truth. I didn't have anybody to help me with this business except for my brother, and I know how hard it is to have this thing living inside you that you want to, you know, throw out there to the world, but you don't have the encouragement to start. So if I can tell you anything, I want all of you who came out here all the way to 10th Avenue to go home tonight and do 3 things to make yourself either start that business or do that thing that's at the bottom of your to-do list that you've always wanted to do, but you don't have the time or the energy or the know-how to do it. So please leave here, do those 3 things. After this is over, please come up. I would love to meet you. I would love to give you my card and stay in touch and help you in any way that I can help. But please promise me that you will get started because I never in my life thought I would be up here talking to you about a business I started from a Craigslist ad. I posted the ad, I went to sleep, I figured I'd wake up the next morning and forget that I did that. And I haven't been able to forget about it since June 27th. It's brought the coolest people in the world in my inbox and in my life. I've gotten to meet fascinating people that I would never have had the chance to meet, that have totally altered my life and my thought process and my goals and my dreams. I've made and I have big dreams for this to go on and on and on and on. So there's good and bad, and I would love to take some questions. Yay!